In a country torn by bloody civil war, a young man seizes power. In his native tongue, he is called Dracula. This is not the vampire, Count Dracula, but a real historical figure, a Romanian prince.
He was celebrated throughout Christendom for his achievements against the Turks.
Dracula was a warlord who became known all across Europe for both his breathtaking courage and his terrifying cruelty.
What drove him again and again was a need for survival, a need for affirmation, and a driving need to torture.
Known as the Impaler after his favorite means of execution, Dracula is said to have burned, boiled, disemboweled, and tortured his way into the history books. But he also left an enduring legacy, not just in blood, in brick, mortar, and stone. He constructed palaces. He founded the city that was to become his country's capital. He also built one of Eastern Europe's most breathtaking mountaintop castles. Now, with state-of-the-art computer animation, the lost world of Dracula will be brought back to life. Transylvania, a land on the outermost fringes of Europe. It is dominated by sweeping mountains, shrouded in mystery and legend.
The romantic version of the country, the ruined castles, the whole vampire legend. In a way, we've had to invent all this because we don't know enough about the real thing.
Today, Transylvania is a region within the Eastern European country of Romania. In the 19th century, the novelist Bram Stoker made it the home of Count Dracula, the world's most famous vampire. But until the 1970s, few readers suspected that he had taken the name from a real-life warlord.
Forget Hollywood. Forget vampire stories. This man really existed, and he really was a vicious, extraordinarily cruel, but extremely successful leader.
The world of the real Dracula was bloodthirsty and treacherous. But even by the horrific standards of his own time, he earned a reputation for barbarity. There are stories that he disemboweled his own pregnant mistress, that he collected 24,000 noses from the corpses of vanquished enemies.
Even amongst the sick, twisted, sadistic rulers, Vlad still stands out as a psychotic madman.
Vlad Dracula remains an enigma, a figure whose deeds are still controversial today. Madman or single-minded warrior?
I would say that he was very much a man of his times who did what he had to do in order to survive.
Now, our team of experts will search to uncover a world that has been almost entirely lost.
The written record is very sparse. The archaeology, by comparison with great civilizations of the ancient world, is sparse as well. We don't know what actually is out there.
Using clues on the ground and cutting-edge animation, the experts will reconstruct Dracula's mighty palaces, castles, and fortifications. They will be seen again as they were in the time of the infamous Impaler.
The modern technologies we have enable us to understand what's left behind a lot better than we were able to in the past, so we can explore inside the walls and draw conclusions about the construction without having to take them to pieces first. Makes it a lot quicker and a lot easier to do.
The trail begins at Vlad's birthplace. It is a picturesque fortified town called Sighisoara in the heart of Transylvania. The investigators start by uncovering clues from one of Sighisoara's oldest houses.
This is the house in which, in 1431, Prince Vlad the Impaler Dracula was born.
But much has changed since the 15th century.
It was probably a single-story building at that stage. What we see behind us is a 17th century addition to the building. It's not as it would have been in Vlad's day.
We can now reveal Dracula's birthplace as it looked when he was born. A one-story building in the heart of the citadel, it lacked sewers, plumbing, the most basic amenities. Yet the thick river stone it was built from provided its most important feature, security. Vlad's hometown was one of the safest in all Transylvania. The walls yield the first clue to the spectacular fortifications that existed here when Vlad Dracula was born.
This effectively was the town wall, and it's punctuated with defensive towers. And behind us, we have one of the most elaborate.
The walls and defensive towers, called bastions, were up to 10 feet thick. They were there simply to prevent any enemy from sacking the city.
If you look at the lower area, we have the cranels where they poured the boiling oil and hot water on people who were attacking the fortress. And in the upper part, we have a narrow slit.
Sighisoara was heavily fortified because it was one of Transylvania's richest towns. But the people who lived within its walls were not Romanians. They were Saxons, men and women of German descent. Pioneering Saxons had migrated to Transylvania in the 12th century to become merchants and craftsmen. In return, they were granted special trading privileges.
They were very much a race apart. The Saxons were very much associated with greed, typifying the middle classes in any era. They made money at the expense of the native Wallachians.
Vlad Dracula's father, a Romanian prince, struck a special trading deal with the Saxons of Sighisoara. In return, he and his family were permitted to live within the city walls, in the apparent safety of the citadel. But in 1447, Dracula's father was assassinated by a rival clan who seized the throne of Wallachia, Romania's southern province. Vlad fled north. He vowed to return. One of the places he stayed was the spectacular Bran Castle. Today, tourists flock to Bran Castle in the belief that it was the home of Count Dracula, the villain depicted in Bram Stoker's novel. The fictional vampire dwelt here amongst the undead until he was killed with a stake through the heart. This place was painted as the home of evil. The real Dracula did come here in the 1450s. And beneath the Gothic splendor, the experts uncover what the castle really looked like in his time. Modernized by Romanian royalty at the beginning of the 20th century, the castle's interior is very different from what it was. But by using rarely seen floor plans of the castle, the experts pieced together how it must have looked 500 years ago.